congressman for Minnesota's 1st District for 12 years, and now sharing his thoughts with us on the Al Travis Show. It's Congressman Gil Gutknecht.
Love having him on. Congressman, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. I would suspect you're coming down. You're going to be Scott Jensen's deal here. I throw it out here. Here's what's people ask me why you keep bringing it up. Guys running for governor, and I thoroughly believe you've got to test the waters everywhere. And this guy's coming to about 10 miles from the Iowa border, going to be down here in Winnebago, Minnesota, to meet and greet and see the people. I love this for him. You going to be around?
Yeah, I'm coming down to Faribault County, and I'm doing it in part because I've known Dr. Jensen since before he ran for the governorship. When he was just a backbench state senator. Yeah. I've always been impressed with him. He's got a keen intellect. He's basically a country doctor, and he's a good guy. But the real reason I'm coming to Faribault County is because of Bob Weirtz. Bob Weirtz is hosting this, and Bob has been just, he's been more than a friend of mine. He's been a business partner. We've done a number of things together, and he's hosting it. So there's no way I could not come to Faribault County tonight.
You, if you're in Faribault County and Bob Weirtz invites you, you go. Bob, just Dustlock is a sponsor of ours, is one of his businesses, and he's been a real good friend of the program. And yeah, he invited Scott Jensen down, and Jensen said, yeah. So 5:30 to 7:30, and that will be at the Winnebago school.
And let me follow up on that. I think it's important that all of these gubernatorial candidates get out to outstate. I think there is a sense when I travel around and talk to people. There is a sense that the current administration in St. Paul pretty much ignores everything outside the final circle of suburban Minnesota. And really, particularly as it relates to agriculture, it is so easy for people in the cities and the suburbs to forget that agriculture is still the backbone of the Minnesota economy. Yep. And so and whether we're talking about the University of Minnesota, for example, one of the things the next governor should do, and I'm just giving free advice.
There you go.
But one of the things we desperately need, and Blue Earth, Minnesota is a good example, we need more veterinarians from our Minnesota vet school to practice out in rural parts of Minnesota. We need animal agriculture. You can't have animal agriculture if you don't have vets. And our vet school is graduating mostly people who want to work on poodles. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with being a veterinarian who works with poodles. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we need veterinarians that work on heifers, that pull calves, that know how to vaccinate pigs. There are a lot of things that are really critical to counties like Faribault County and basically all of outstate Minnesota. So I think it's important that all these candidates get out there and talk to farmers and talk to people in small towns because they're important too. And what they do is extremely important to the economy of the state of Minnesota. And ultimately, when you start talking about tax revenue, frankly, outstate cities and towns and farms and so forth generate an awful lot of revenue for the state of Minnesota. So I'm glad that Dr. Jensen is coming to Faribault County and hopefully all of the candidates running statewide will make it a point to get out and talk to the folks who make a big difference.
As you pay attention, especially in this governor's race, so we got Dr. Scott Jensen. I think we know him. He ran last time. Kendall Qualls got in, didn't make it in the primary. This now Kristen Robbins is in. They've all been willing to do this program. So far, I got a bad word to say about any of them. Do we need more, or do we still need that superstar? What do we got to have to win this gubernatorial race?
Well, that's a great question. The truth of the matter is you don't really know how good a candidate is until, the summer of the election, working the state fair and working the county fairs and doing all the things you have to do. Whether or not the field is complete today, I don't know. But I think people are beginning to realize that whether or not the current governor runs for re-election, I think the Democrats are in trouble. I think they're in trouble nationally. I think they don't realize yet that that their base is getting smaller, And they continue to fight these fights that are 80-20 issues. And Trump has done a marvelous job of boxing them into the corner, whether you're talking about the border, whether you're talking about security in cities like Washington, D.C., or Chicago, or Minneapolis, for crying out
Yeah.
loud, whether you're talking about what they've been willing to tolerate in terms of fraud and the amount of money that just got lost. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the questions that any of the candidates for governor in the state of Minnesota has to ask is what happened to the $18 billion surplus? What did we get for that? And the honest answer is most Minnesotans have no idea where that money went and whether or not we got any real value. I mean, if they say, well, it went to schools, well, okay, then how much have the test scores gone up in the last 2 years? Well, the bottom line is they've gone down. And they say, well, we're trying to help the kids in the inner cities. Well, their test scores are going down. We have some of the worst problems. And so in terms of who's the best candidate, I don't really know yet. But I think if they can just talk about the issues, and they don't even have to talk about the current governor. I mean, all of these issues, all of these positions have been taken by the party. And you're really running against the DFL party and what they've accomplished or failed to accomplish, or what the damage that they've done just in the last 3 or 4 years. So when you ask me who's the best candidate, do we need another candidate? We just need somebody who will point out and ask questions about what's really happened over the last 4 to 5 years. And I think the story is good enough on its own.
Your gut check on whether Walz goes for another term, and let me lead it this way. He's waited a long time. We're now looking into September. He thinks September 1st is when he'll announce whether he's getting in or not. The DNC Summer Committee is meeting in Minneapolis. They start the thing off with John Hoffman, who got shot 9 times. And Klobuchar was there. Then he gets on. And we have had this entire shooting, since the shootings, this whole, can we not talk better? Can we take the rhetoric out of things? He follows John Hoffman. And he makes some comment about we haven't gotten over this in Minnesota. This is not a news story for us. This is the way we live. And then he broke off into ripping everyone who is a Trump or a Republican as far as he called them fascists. I don't know. He's a man child with fat ankles. He even said this? How easy would it be to be a he said the Republican? All you guys should ask is, what do I got to wear today? Oh, that frickin' red hat, and be a jerk. I mean, I don't know where the rhetoric, how do I put this? How has the rhetoric not gone down? This is the guy who should be leading that charge of, can we not all at least talk decent with each other? And he's calling all the rest of us a bunch of idiots and fascists.
Well, when you think about it, though, that's all they have left. I mean, they can't talk about their records.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is a lot of the violence that we've seen, in Minneapolis and around the state, they helped have, they're in charge. Okay. Yeah. So what have they made better? Well, the truth of the matter is there aren't many things you can point to and say, we've made this better. Thanks to our leadership, we've done this and we've done that and we've accomplished this. The unvarnished truth is they don't have a record to talk about. So all they can do is demean and use this, harsh, angry rhetoric against their adversaries. And I think that's part of the problem. They know they're failing, but they don't want to admit it, and they certainly can't talk about their record. And so, they reduce everything to the lowest common denominator. And it's really a sad comment on politics in Minnesota, but on the failure of the Democratic Party in general.
Real quickly, you do speeches and have most of your adult life, and you do them in big crowds, little crowds, important folks or not. You're the governor of the state of Minnesota. He swore at least 3 times in this speech that he gave. Not that I have virgin ears or anything like that, but I remember at a time when if you were going to put a swear word in your conversation, it was meant for emphasis. There was a reason it was in there. And now it seems like I'm a tough guy. I swore 3 times. You get my point? I don't get the language.
Well, when you want to put tampons in boys' restrooms, somehow you have to demonstrate to the body politic that you're a tough guy. Okay,
No.
so you have to resort again to the lowest common denominators. That's what they've reduced the level of political debate in this state to a level that was unheard of even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it is a sad comment on what they have devolved to.
All right. We've got to go to break. When we come back, I got to get a lesson from you. I guess I thought mayors didn't have a left and right. You didn't run under the banner of a Democrat or Republican. I thought that was independent all the way around. But it isn't, and it especially isn't in Minneapolis. We'll talk about what's going on in the state right after this. We've got Congressman Gil Gutknecht.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Achieving your financial goals requires individual planning and a comprehensive approach. At Midwest Money Management, our mission is to provide you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to feel comfortable financially today and secure about tomorrow. Learn more at MidwestMoneyManagement.com. That's MidwestMoneyManagement.com.
Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Inc., Midwest Money Management, and JW Cole Financial Inc. and JW Cole Advisors Inc. are unaffiliated entities.
Amongst friends, the Al Travis Show. Nothing but talk.
Got him, Congressman Gil Gutknecht. Maybe a bit of a civics lessons for me. I thought things like city council and your mayor, your county commissioners, I thought that was all not DFL Republican. That was all independent. You didn't run that way. Am I wrong? Because the city of Minneapolis, the DFL nominated this Senator Fatah, then took that back. We'll talk about all that. But isn't that a are those seats endorsed?
Well, pretty much local elections are governed by the the city or the county, the state and the federal government have little to say about those local elections. So some cities have partisan elections, some don't.
Okay.
Most don't.
Okay.
But the bigger cities almost always do.
Okay.
And the parties want to get involved, and we see how they're getting involved in Democratic politics in the city of Minneapolis, and we will talk about that. But generally speaking, the state legislature can intervene in local elections if there's some reason to believe that, that they're not. For example, you may have a situation where, and this was very common, and this is where the legislature, even when I was there, we sort of, wagged our finger at a few of the cities because they were drawing their precincts in such a way that certain cliques could continue to control the city government. Mm-hmm. And so I think the legislature said, hey, wait a second, you've got to draw the lines so that they reflect some commonality and that you're not just protecting certain cliques that can then control the city. But for the most part, cities control their own elections. One other point I will make about city elections, and this has been something that they like to have the elections when very few people vote. Okay, they're in off year, odd times. Yeah. We continue to pay attention to politics down in South Alabama. Today, they're having a big election for the Mobile mayor. They've had the same mayor for about a decade, and now he's not going to run again. So there's just a very aggressive fight among about 3 or 4 candidates for that mayoral. But that's being held, the 26th of August.
Yeah. Let me ask you real quick on just the way things have changed. And I'm going to get Mandani, I'm going to get his name wrong, New York, Democratic Socialist, going to be mayor there. At least looks like he's going to be. He's a socialist. This Fatah here is a Democratic Socialist. Are things changing? When you and I were kids, the idea that a socialist would have a chance to win an election if he called himself a socialist seems very strange, would have been out of the world to me. And here we are, 2 very large cities, and it looks like both of them could win. Are times are changing? People? How do you get socialists running these things?
Well, clearly the Democratic Party is not the same party that was, helped put together by Hubert Humphrey. I mean, the DFL was basically pulled together by Hubert Humphrey. And now, who would have ever thought? I would never have imagined that essentially the Iron Range would be considered a safe Republican seat. Yeah. Think about that in the Congress. Point. Yeah. So things have changed a lot in the last 10 years. And the Democratic Party has moved further and further to the left. And they've alienated a lot of what used to be their base. And I don't think they quite even understand that. And they've replaced those union workers, they've replaced largely with college-educated white women. And they think that's a good formula. But I don't think it is. And they're angry with Donald Trump because Donald Trump has scooped up a lot of those former Democrat reliable voters, whether it's in Pennsylvania or wherever. So yes, things are changing, but I don't think it's for the better. I also do believe, though, that the Greeks did not write history books because they believed that history only went in cycles. And I think we are in hopefully a low cycle as it relates to politics in the United States and in Minnesota. But everything changes as well it should. The bad ain't forever and the good ain't for good. And so things are changing, but right now not for the better, at least for cities like Minneapolis.
You brought up what you were talking about is gerrymandering, basically setting up votes. With the last 90 seconds, because you're a good radio guy, is Minnesota okay with, do we gerrymander as much as others? When you look at congressional districts, we're about a 50-50 state. Our congressional district, we're 50-50 split. Are we pretty good about that? Or are we the Texas, the Californias? Where do we sit on our maps? Have we been those people?
I think the last 2 or 3 congressional maps have been, maybe not the last one, but I know that there were 2 that were drawn by federal judges, a 3-judge panel. And so politically, we didn't have much to say about it. And I didn't particularly like the map that they drew, particularly in the year 2000. We had a map that basically everyone had agreed to except one member of the congressional delegation. And as a result, it couldn't be passed. So it ultimately went to a 3-judge panel. But no, I would say in general, there is less gerrymandering and politicking. The biggest concern I have, and I think as you look forward after the next census, that there should be a serious look at whether or not you shouldn't combine Minneapolis and St. Paul, because they have far much more in common than they do with the suburbs and particularly with outstate. So the commonality rule is one thing they should look at.
Fair enough. I'm out of time, my friend. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you this afternoon.
See you later.
He's Congressman Gil Gutknecht on the Al Travis Show.